Greetings to all the beautiful, curious human beings out there. My name is Lily, and I explore the unconscious, the shadow, and social programming from a somatic, energetic standpoint. And today I wanted to talk about specific strategies or skills or ways that you can work with the physiology and the activation emotions in your systems to support releasing. And I've done a lot of therapy in my life, talk therapy, but I found that even though the conscious mind could come to some kind of reconciling of my past, it didn't release the unprocessed physiological reactions or emotions or beliefs in my system. So some years ago I started to explore other ways to work with it. Meditation and like exploring consciousness and internal family systems, somatic experiencing. And I just found it really helpful, and it's given me a lot of neutrality and understanding. And I call this the language, I didn't make up the word, but somatic shadow work. But it's really, I don't know what to call it. It's just supporting the body to release repressed emotions and frozen nervous system states and social programming that prevents us from feeling peace and being authentic, and so I found it really helpful. And in the earlier phases, I kind of looked into traditional shadow work. I'm a big Carl Jung fan, but I found a lot of it to be very intellectual and conceptual, and that just keeps the mind spinning. And although understanding can be found, it wasn't providing me with the relief I was looking for, I guess. And also, I found a lot of it to be pretty vague, generalized, and I don't do well with that. I am a very literal yet creative person, very curious, and I needed somebody to actually take me through it. And I practice, what I do for work is I practice somatic psychology and therapy, and even in a lot of the trainings that I did, I needed more literal, experiential understanding, which sometimes I got, other times I didn't. So I started on this journey inside years ago, and I had a shitload of activation, and external circumstances were triggering me repeatedly over and over again, and I started to move attention to the body through meditation, and I, of course, received support from other people, but the experiential wisdom, I guess you could say, through practicing it on my own, helped me understand and develop tools so I could support other people. And it helped me understand what is really going on under the surface, inside of the system. And so I thought I would share a few things today. I think I talked about the recipe for this kind of exploration before in a previous video, but curiosity is needed, and attention and compassion. And this is kind of a tapping into innocence. This isn't to evoke shame or cause more internal conflict or to get really intellectual about things. That's not what this is about. So this activation that occurs in the body, there's nervous system states and emotions and beliefs, and we feel beliefs. For example, if I have the belief that I'm a failure in my system, I feel that. And I came across this a while ago when I was practicing with clients. When I would ask them how they feel, sometimes they would say like, oh, I feel like I failed. And through traditional, education around counseling and therapy, kind of the narrative was like, that's a thought, that's not a feeling, that's not an emotion. That's a term. I feel like a failure would be a thought. But what I came to understand is that they were actually identifying a belief in their system that they felt, and it was a feeling, and it was them tuning into the energetic information of the belief that I am a failure. So there's beliefs that we can feel, and emotions and physiological nervous system states, and there's also concepts and social programming, things like around success, or what we need to do in order to be a good person, programs of conformity, and lots of different stuff. And you can feel them in your system. The difficulty sometimes is that, kind of similar to an autoimmune response, the defense system kicks in kind of early in your life and causes a lot of suppression and repression, and tactics and distractions from the body, disassociation from the body, the moving of attention away from feeling what's happening in the body. And that's partially because we've never been taught really how to tangibly work or support ourselves to feel what we're feeling. And so we've kind of been abandoned as a culture in that way and taught that feelings are useless or weak or, dot, 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 dot. Lots of programming around feeling emotions. Anyway, getting to the topic at hand. So, when you turn attention into the body, I'll just use an emotion. When you notice an emotion, there's an affect, there's a feeling, like when you're feeling anger. You know when you're feeling sad. And you can locate it in the body, and it feels like a physical sensation. So if you're feeling an emotion that you want to support to move through your system, you can turn attention into the body and ask yourself, where am I feeling this in my body? Sometimes with anger, there'll be like a hot clenching in the stomach, or your face will get hot, your ears might get hot. You might have some kind of energy frequency in your hands and arms, something like that. You might feel it in your chest. So the first step is always just asking, where do I feel this in my body? And once you locate it, we are going to welcome it to be felt. And you're going to notice a lot of resistance to this, or some people might. I don't want to feel this. This is uncomfortable. What is this going to do? What's the point of feeling? And it's good to honor the resistance, just like you honor the feeling itself, the emotion itself. You want to honor the resistance. Not allowing it to dictate whether or not you feel it, but just to give it voice. It might say, I don't want to feel this. This is painful. This is uncomfortable. So we can give it voice, and just allow the resistance or the no to feeling to be as it is. So we allow the no, and we feel the no in the body. I don't want to. So once you allow the I don't want to, you can return to the physical sensation. So, for example, right now in my chest there's a squeezing and a tightening. And you want to kind of describe in your mind what you're feeling, what you're noticing. Maybe it feels heavy, tight. Maybe there's a squeezing. You want to get just really clear about what that feels like in your body and where. And we're going to tap into curiosity, getting curious about the way it feels in the system. So one of the tools that I teach is this analogy that you approach this emotion, whatever emotion is present, like you would an innocent child that wants to tell you something. And so, just like if an innocent child comes up to you wanting to share something about how they feel, you might take a couple breaths, relax your body, and really tap into active listening, moving attention to them, tapping into compassion towards them. And that's how we want to approach these emotions and physiological activation in the body. So you're not making it your enemy, you're befriending it and getting curious about what information it holds. So it's a gentle and compassionate approach. And we welcome the feeling to the space. And we turn our attention to it like we would an innocent child. And then you can ask it questions. This sensation, this emotion that you're feeling in your system. Now, we never feel things for no reason. There's always a reason why we're feeling something. So you could ask questions about that. If you don't know what the emotion is, you could ask the question of what are you? What are you feeling? And when you turn curiosity and ask questions to these physiological sensations of emotion, or maybe it's not emotion, maybe it's a belief, maybe it's a nervous system state, you move attention to the feeling, and you want to kind of just try to relax the shoulders, maybe ground attention in the bottom half of your body, and it's very similar to like watching a cloud moving in the sky. So that's what we're going to practice. Instead of visually watching a cloud move and change as the wind moves it through the sky, you're going to feel and observe the physical sensation in your body, which is actually an energetic contraction of some kind, or a frequency of some kind. But it feels physical. And what I would say that might help you with this, or that helped me with it, is just like I don't control how the cloud changes or where it moves, I don't do that with this emotion either, with this physiological contraction or squeezing or heaviness. I'm just as observing it and honoring it and allowing it. And it's going to start to shift and change if it's really fully being allowed. You can give it breath, you can breathe right into the physical sensation. And it's going to start to shift or change a little bit. So initially, when I identified the sensation in my chest, there was a squeezing inward, like an inward squeezing sensation, tightness, contraction. And as I breathed into it and allowed it to be there, it started to move to the back of my spine. And now the squeezing is still there. It's less acute. And there's also a burning contraction in my spine. And I asked it a question as if I was asking another person. I know that sounds weird, but it holds information that I don't know about consciously. And so I'm going to ask it, what are you? Can you tell me what's important to know about you? And so my intention is right on the contraction in my chest and my spine. And internally I asked it that question, and what you're going to notice is either you will have a knowing of what it is, or a thought might bubble up, or a memory might come into your field of consciousness. Maybe a visual. Maybe you're a visual person. Maybe a visual will pop up in your mind. So you're opening up, listening to the feeling of the sensation after you ask it the question. What's important is that most of your attention needs to remain on the sensation. And you just allow, like, opening up and listening to a far off sound that you're really curious about. So most of my attention is in my spine and my chest right now. And I'm listening to the feeling of the sensation. And the emotion is fear. And when I translated the energetic information in that contraction, it shifted and changed and moved up to my neck. And now there's a squeezing in my chest. And an undescribable frequency in my upper neck and my head that comes all the way up to the top of my head. And when I ask the sensation, allowing most of my attention to remain on the sensation, feeling it, listening to the feeling, the thought comes up that I don't want to do it. And the information is there is something I have to figure out in my life that has to do with paperwork and bureaucratic bullshit, and I don't want to do it, is what this information is saying. And when I further ask, can you tell me more about that? This contraction, this fear, is the fear of feeling frustration because I don't know how to do it. And the fear of feeling stupid. Now, as an adult person, if you could say that, as the consciousness that I have now, I might think, well, yeah, you don't know how to do it, but you just learn, you just figure it out, you know? You just call for support and you figure it out. But this energetic information is not from my adult life. It's from the past. And the memory that's emerging as I continue to feel it and talk to you and make this video is a knowing of being in grade school, needing to know, observing other kids seemingly knowing how to do something that I didn't know how to do. And a belief that I should know. So I'm getting a lot of information from this energetic information in my body. Not only is it sharing that there's fear here, it's also showing me a memory of the past in which I was probably feeling this same physiological activation in grade school. It's pretty young. I don't remember this activation then because we often don't remember physiological responses. We usually have maybe a cognitive memory, but we don't remember how we feel, how we contract, how we physiologically respond to these situations. We don't typically remember that. That's suppressed. And so this pattern is giving me that physiological memory of how it felt to interpret that I should know, and the behavior pattern of comparing myself to other people and making an assumption that they know what they're doing and I should know what I'm doing. So as you can see, this has nothing to do or much to do with this bureaucratic paperwork that I have to figure out. This is really a memory frozen in time in my system that emerged because it's similar enough to this physiological memory that never got to be processed out of my system. So the activation currently is a lot less. There's still some remaining tightness in my spine. And I'm just demonstrating to show you what kind of information that you might get access to. It's all important. It's all pertinent information, even if you notice a thought. As long as most of your attention is on the physiological activation and you're approaching it with curiosity and compassion, and you could kind of say that you're kind of building a relationship with these sensations or energetic information, or you could say building a relationship with a part of my psychological self that was fragmented off and repressed and stored in the subconscious mind, because until this moment I did not recall that. I had no memory of that. This is the first time my consciousness is accessing it in adulthood. So that was suppressed, stored in the unconscious, subconscious storage bank for many years. So, what, I'm 45 now, so maybe 39 years maybe. It's been just kicking it, waiting to be honored and felt and processed through the system. So the sensation's a lot lighter now. It's not as contracted, but it's still in my spine. The sensation in my head is lightened up. And although it might seem that my attention is on what I'm saying and recording this video, most of my attention is actually with this pattern. So, with this technique, it really, all you're doing is playing a supportive role. You're not controlling it. You're not making it move. You are showing up to honor what is present in your conscious field, what is present in your body that needs your attention. And you're giving it breath and attention and curiosity, and you're not condemning it or wanting it to go away. You're just practicing being authentically curious about what is this? What is this emotion? What is this physiological activation? What is this sensation? Whatever word you want to say. What is it? What information is it holding? What does it need me to see so that it can start to move through the system and release or neutralize, whatever word works for you? You're just playing a supportive role. We don't consciously choose how our nervous system is going to respond to any situation. It just does, and we are aware of it, or we're not. So just like we don't consciously decide how our nervous system reacts, we actually can't consciously decide for it to disappear. And any attempts to control it, or get rid of it, or suppress it, or demonize it, or get frustrated with it, or be irritated at it, or want it to go away in the myriad of ways that we can want it to go away. All that's going to do is keep it frozen and locked up in your system. So fighting against or resisting against, it's only going to perpetuate the contraction. And eventually you might go about your day and suppression occurs, and you might be able to push it down. Not that we actually know the process of pushing it down. It's typically just distracting ourselves with something else. But the same trigger is going to come up again. Nothing just disappears out of your system. It will return. The next time I have to do some bureaucratic shit, I'm going to be triggered. Something I don't know how to do, that memory is going to emerge. The physiological memory with the emotions and the beliefs attached, it's going to emerge. And so why not just support it now in the moment as it's here? So that's one tangible practice. Now, it's really, really simple, but it's not easy, because feeling goes against the ingrained patterning of the defense system, which is all about distracting from feeling uncomfortable things in our body and disassociating in many different ways. So it's simple, but it's not always easy. And if you find yourself not being able to maintain attention on the physiological sensation, you might try identifying, what am I afraid of if I feel this, or what is my no to feeling this? Also, a very common thing, I work with clients all the time, and this happens in myself all the time, where your attention is on a sensation, and then it will be magnetized up into the thought space and spinning and thinking, and you get really intellectual and you start talking about it, or you just notice a lot of spinning and ruminating, thinking, planning out your day. There's a lot of thoughts that you might notice. So you might notice your attention magnetizing up into the thought space, thinking about what you want for dinner, thinking about that conversation you want to have with that person, thinking about, oh, I need to clean my house. So if you notice that happening, you can practice just moving attention back to the sensation. And if it keeps happening, there's some kind of a resistance in the system, some kind of defense happening to feeling it. And there's no need to shame or criticize. It's just really getting curious. Why is my attention moving away from the sensation? What's going on? Just really curious, like you would a child, an innocent child. What's going on? What is my no to feeling this? What am I afraid would happen if I feel this? It's really common to fear overwhelm, to get sucked in to the emotion, for it to overpower you. Fear of, oh, if I feel this emotion, it will dictate my behavior. So there's a lot of unconscious fears. So it's good to identify what is keeping me from feeling this and honoring that. So that's your doorway. If you can't maintain attention on a sensation, your doorway is the no, is the resistance. And can you locate where that is in your body? Can you feel in, where am I feeling this no? What would this no to feeling this sensation say if it could use my vocal cords? Because even though you might be able to move attention back to the emotion or the belief or the nervous system state, if your attention keeps getting drawn and sucked and magnetized away, there's a reason, and there's something there to honor, something there to see, something there to clarify, so that you can understand, what is my defense system doing that is not allowing me to feel? So that would be something to work with. And the more, I would say, the higher the trauma load you have in your body, the more resistance to feeling there is. And many of you might resonate with that. I had a pretty high trauma load in my body, and it took me years to work with the resistance to feeling, because there's a fundamental interpretation that happens that's something like, it isn't safe to feel, it isn't safe to be in my body because bad things happen to my body, bad things happen when I'm in my body, or I don't know how to deal with these feelings in my body. And unfortunately for most of humanity, the information to support our children and ourselves in this process of release and feeling was withheld, not given. I don't think it's new information. I just think we didn't have access to it. And there's lots of Eastern traditions that have practiced somatic techniques for a long time. But the Western cultures, really, we've been programmed to suppress and repress and deny and sweep it under the rug and pretend that feelings don't matter. And they do. They matter. And I feel a little ranty about this because I see how much damage this does to people, and how much shame can come up surrounding not being able to control my emotions, not being able to control my physiological reactions, and being taught that we should just be able to do that, even though we're not given any specific skills whatsoever to do that. Thankfully it's changing now, but when I grew up in the 80s, and even 10 years ago, didn't have the information. And my parents certainly didn't, and their parents certainly didn't either. So this is a generational and cultural I don't know the word to use. Dysfunction? I don't know. I know we're all trying to do our best, and hopefully this can support someone. And the more you practice, the easier it gets. And the more you practice and the more release that happens, the calmer your system gets, the more peace you have access to. It's much less easy to act out in subconscious patterning. So there's more sovereignty and empowerment that can occur. And yeah. Anyway, I thought I would share that, getting really specific, and some metaphors and tools that hopefully you find helpful. And yeah, I hope you all have a beautiful day.